Good morning. Today we are going to talk about externalities. What's meant by externalities? Externalities are costs or benefits of market transactions not reflected in prices. So, when externality prevails, a third party is affected by its production or consumption. The benefit or cost of the third party are not considered by either the seller or the buyer of the commodity. So here this means that there is a third party. This is the seller and this is the buyer, that the two main players in the market. They are going to sell and buy commodity. The seller is going to provide commodity for the buyer and the buyer is going to pay money in return. While there is third party which is affected by the production of this commodity, but he is not compensated for that, even if this impact is positive impact or negative impact, whether he is going to be harmed from the production of this commodity, or even if he is going to get benefit from selling and buying this commodity. No one is concerned about the cost or benefit for this third party, neither the seller nor the buyer. So this means that market prices do not reflect either the cost or the benefit, or in other words, market prices do not reflect all marginal social benefit or marginal social cost when there is an externality. There are two different types of externalities. It can be positive or negative externality. Negative externality is external cost to the third party, which is not reflected in price. So it is the damage. Say, for example, damage caused by industrial pollution. Say, for example, cement industry. Producer is going to produce cement and the consumer is going to buy it. Producer is going to get income. The consumer is going to get cement, while there is a third party other than the seller and the buyer, which is affected by pollution results from the production of cement. So this third party will bear external costs, additional costs. This cost is not reflected in the price of the commodity. What about positive externality? Positive externality is benefit to third party. So there is external benefit. Say for example, fire prevention or fire alarm. The consumer is going to buy a smoke alarm and the producer is going to produce the smoke alarm, while there is a third party, which are the neighbors, who will be prevented from any fire or be safe from any fire without paying money for that. So there is an additional benefit, an external benefit to this third party, which is not reflected in the price of the commodity. But here we have to differentiate between two different types of externalities: real externality and pecuniary externality. With respect to pecuniary externality, it's reflected in price, although it is an impact on the third party, but it's reflected on price. It's represented by increase or decrease in price of commodity due to increased demand, for example. Example, your hobby is photography, and there are a large number of people who would like to buy photographic equipment. Due to increased demand, the price of these equipments increase. So this is an additional cost that you have to pay as the price of the commodity increase. But in this case, this cost is reflected in the price of the commodity. So this is not a real externality, but the real one is the unpriced cost or benefit. So what is the impact of externality on efficiency? Why do externality cause problem for resource allocation in the market system? Let's start with the case of negative externality. If there is negative externality, this means that price of good or service doesn't reflect the full marginal social cost. So suppose, for example, that there is this is a factory for the production of paper, which cause pollution. Each unit of production results in cost to the third party. So this is additional cost is known as marginal external cost. Or MEC. So MEC is the extra cost, to third parties resulting from production of another good of another unit of good or service. So this means that marginal social cost equals marginal private cost plus marginal external cost. So in case of negative externality, as there is an additional cost to the third party, which is the marginal external cost is a part of marginal social cost. So in this case, we can divide marginal social cost between private cost and the external cost, which is directed to the third party. Let's start with the case of perfect competition, and we would like to identify under perfect competition what is the optimal quantity or the efficient production, and in case of negative externality, what's gonna be the efficient quantity. This is tons of paper, which is number of units, okay, and this is price, benefit, and cost. Demand curve, which represents marginal social benefit, and this is supply curve, which represents marginal private cost. In this case, let's assume that the equilibrium quantity will be 5 and the equilibrium price will be 100. But actually, supply curve doesn't represent or reflect the marginal social cost. It represents only a small part, which is the marginal private cost. So there is an additional cost. If you are going to include the additional cost, so you have to produce less as total cost is going to decrease. So this is the new line, which represents marginal social cost, which is the summation of marginal private cost plus marginal external cost. Let's assume that the marginal external cost per unit equals $10. So this is $10. This means that at this level, the price will be 110. But the point G is not an equilibrium point. So the new equilibrium point is the point of intersection of the marginal social cost and the marginal social benefit, as equilibrium will be achieved when marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit, or marginal social cost equals marginal private cost plus marginal external cost equals marginal social benefit. This can be achieved at point B at a price say 105 and the quantity 4.5 ton. Okay, from this figure we can conclude that in case of competitive market equilibrium, without taking account of externalities, equilibrium condition will be at point A when marginal private cost equals marginal social benefit. But efficiency requires that the full marginal social cost of good to be considered in the productive decision. So as a result, we are going to move to point B, where marginal private cost plus marginal external cost equals marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit. So this is to achieve efficiency. So in this case, output have to decrease from 5 to 4.5 and price has to increase from 100 to 105. So this means that the triangle ABG is a possible net social benefit if we can reduce the production from 5 to 4.5 units. We can conclude from that negative externalities lead to too much production or too much output. Or in other words, if negative externality exists, Too much output is produced and sold in the competitive market. Too much compared to what? Relative to the efficient amount.